Scripture this morning comes actually from the lectionary a couple of weeks ago, but I felt inspired and wanted to use it. It is Genesis chapter 1 through 5. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the day light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day. This is the wisdom of the Lord. My life is a mess, and I think many of you know that. Loss brings confusion, a sense of being untethered, and most often the advice one would get is to have a routine, to get some order back into your life, and to make sure you get up every morning. I know all of you have experienced times like this, and we're all kind of in the midst of a messy life together. Now, if you've ever had a child, you know that parenting can bring a lot of mayhem to life. Just remember that, Mark and Jamie. Here we go again. Parenting in general is difficult, particularly when there's infants, because infants can't talk and you have to try and understand what's going on with them without hearing any words. And then that all comes back when they're teenagers. Perhaps you've heard of the Holmes and Rahe stress scale. It associates numerical value with various kinds of events in life. If your score is above 300, it indicates you might face illness. If you are from 150 to 300, it means that you are 30% less prone to illness. If you're under 150, you're in good shape. My score was 461. A little messy. Have you all been experiencing turmoil in the world, in our country? An insurrection, no less. The country is divided, and that shows up in families, and it's stressful. And I think with the new leadership, we might be able to take 50 points off our score. But then there's still this pandemic. Consider all the confusion the virus has brought us. Talk about a change in routine. I went through the Holmes and Rahe scale and following all the possible ramifications of the illness. They are change in financial status, that's 38 points. Change in work responsibilities, 36 points. Beginning or ending of school, 26. Revision of personal habits, 24. Change in work hours or conditions. Anybody had that? That's 20. Change in schools, 20. Change in recreation, 19. Change in church activities, what we're experiencing now, 19 points. Change in social activities, 18. They all come to 209 points before you talk about anything personal. That's what the pandemic has brought us. And I hope you don't lose your job, because that's 47 points. The recommendation should be for all of us to find more order or routine in our lives, right? Since the Enlightenment, we have favored order and not felt good about disorder. Newtonian physics is very ordered. So is Euclidean geometry. And religion followed suit with scholasticism, systematic theology, and the rigidness of fundamentalism. The organizing book of the Presbyterian Church is the Book of Order. Everybody know what ours is? The Book of Discipline, which is about action, which is a little less ordered. But if you think about it, you can order action. That's what a routine is, right? And after all, where did the word Methodism come from? It came from having a method. John Wesley had a very ordered life, starting at 4 to 5 a.m. every morning. He recommended it for everyone. But of course, John Wesley never knew the mayhem of parenting. Speaking of children, did you all see last week on Sunday Theodore's Lego creation? Somebody commented on the chat, that is imagination. And I say, indeed it is. Well, you know how Legos come today. They come with very minute orders that make these structures that you can make an AT-AT, a Lamborghini, a yacht. You can make the Disney castle or the Roman Colosseum. They have them all, and you follow all the directions. And then what happens? Well, in my house, all the pieces from all those special things got put in a huge box. And whenever we played Legos, we dumped it out. And like Theo, made our own things. The creations were a bit messy and disordered, but beautiful. As the Legos found themselves into every corner of the house, I remember many times vacuuming them up and, of course, stepping on them. And most of you know, stepping on a Lego is not fun. Do you all remember the TV show Get Smart, by the way? Who are the two sides? Order and chaos. Order and which is in order is good, and what is chaos? Chaos is bad. But now we have chaos theory. No longer is it Newtonian physics. We have quantum physics and relativity. And if you know quantum mechanics, it's very messy. The first story of creation in Genesis is usually interpreted as God creating order in the world. But we have to be careful about our bias for order, because the truth is, it's creation of order out of chaos. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Chaos. Or if you prefer, Eugene Peterson's version in the Message is first this: God created the heavens and the earth. All you see, all that you don't see. Earth was a soup of nothingness, a bottomless emptiness, and inky blackness. God's spirit brooded like a bird above the watery abyss. Chaos. Let's remember there are two creation stories. Everyone remember that? The oldest is in chapter 2, and it includes God breathing into Adam's nostrils, the breath of life. After that, everybody remember where Eve came from in this story? Adam's rib. And then eventually you get the story of Adam and Eve. That's the older story. The creation story in Genesis was written during the time of the Babylonian captivity in the context of what is known as the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation myth. The Enuma Elish is a contest. It is a battle. In this story, the great mother god Tiamat is angry because some of the gods killed her mate Aspu. She's so angry, she summons the forces of chaos and creates 11 horrible monsters to destroy everything. Fortunately, the champion Marduk, the god of the Babylonians, slices her belly, and out of that comes creation. It is creation out of violence. It suggests power through control and oppression. It includes the subjugation of women. And it says that chaos is evil. So when this creation story in Genesis was created, it was created juxtaposed to the Babylonian story, and they were saying, our story is different. In this story, there is no violence, there is no battle. God hovers over the firmament, the chaos. God created out of the chaos, not against the chaos. The purpose of creation in Genesis 1 is not to create order, but to create a world where creativity and beauty and goodness and communion can be. And this does not happen without chaos. John Briggs and David Peat wrote a book about chaos theory. It's called The 7 Life Lessons of Chaos, Spiritual Wisdom from the Science of Chance. When things get too ordered, it becomes a recipe for stagnation and inertia. When we view chaos and messes in our lives not as evil, but as opportunities, then creation can occur. Briggs and Peat have identified 7 lessons of chaos theory. The first, be creative. Another thing that's brought up by science and the Enlightenment was that our education tends to be ordered. Not a lot of art. Art is usually put over there somewhere. Most of our education is about becoming more ordered. I remember one time when Aaron was in 4th grade, somehow his teacher combined a lesson on English with them copying and painting the styles of various famous painters. Monet, Van Gogh, Matisse, Klimt, and of course their favorite was Jackson Pollock. That's right, they got to do Jackson Pollock. Can you imagine well, you can imagine. It's not a lot of order in that lesson. Famous mathematician and philosopher Alfred North Whitehead says worship of God is not the role of safety, it's an adventure in the spirit. An adventure in the spirit. While we educate for safety, life in the spirit is not about safety or security. It's about creativity and an adventure in the spirit. Lesson 2, this one you've heard of, I know. Use butterfly power. From a Chinese proverb that says the flapping of butterfly wings seeming so small can create or do something on the other side of the world. Chaos theory, it turns out, has been instrumental for civic engineers in understanding traffic. Usually when you see traffic, you ask yourselves, oh, there must be an accident up there. But no, you do not need an accident for traffic to occur. All you need is one person tailgating and going back and forth, and they've determined that that one person can create a traffic jam. Likewise, one person can change the world. And all the little things we do in life we think are worthless, maybe they're not. Maybe they can bring effect on the other side of the world. Number 3, go with the flow. And I know this is always a hard one. We've talked about it before. We do want to have control in our lives, don't we? Right now, do you feel like would like to have just a little bit more control in your life? According to chaos theory, if everything is organized from the beginning and nothing is allowed to intervene, there is no opportunity for creation or growth. It only is a recipe for degeneration. I like that we have order in our worship service. It means we connect to what they've done in the past, and I kind of like to know what's coming next. But we all know mistakes happen. And mistakes are not failures. They intrude and can bring some kind of message or life to our worship service. And what would our worship service be without the children? I know you feel it. I see it in your faces. They bring this spontaneity, this wonder of life that we also need in our worship and in our lives. But chaos happens in life. It can be difficult and it can be painful. Our first reaction is to cling to something and gain control. Chaos theory would say maybe it's helpful just to go with it rather than fight it, and to believe something creative can come out of it. Number 4, explore what's in between. Briggs and Pete in chaos theory say this. Chaos theory points beyond simplicity and complexity, objectivity and subjectivity, my view versus your view, control versus uncertainty. It transcends these and other dualities that underlie our thinking and pump energy into our stereotypes and projections. Chaos theory shows us that it is an illusion to separate the self from the other. Looking at the in-between means focusing on relationships, building relationships rather than trying to be right. It's going to the middle ground versus trying to win. It's offering consensus, seeing things that can be shared rather than owned. In any relationship, there are 3 entities. There is person A, there's person B, and there's the relationship. The focus on the relationship is to focus on the in-between. Number 5, look for art in the world. How many of you know the Christian band Jars of Clay? Anybody out there know Jars of Clay? They have a song called The Art in Me. It says, in your picture book, I'm trying hard to see, turning endless pages of this tragedy, sculpting every move you compose a symphony. You plead to everyone to see the art in me. In their book, Briggs and Pete encourage us to look for art everywhere, in nature, in the curve of the hills, in the patterns on the fern, in the animals, stones, buildings, wherever we can find things that look artistic. I would say to see art in persons as well, and to see people as God's works of art. We are not made as machines. We are more like paintings God has made, or pots God has thrown, imperfect, but beautiful. Imagine how differently we might see people if we viewed them as art rather than machine. God didn't build a machine, she wrote a symphony. Number 6, live within time. Live connected to the past and the future, but not belong to them. Time isn't something to fill with tasks and accomplishments. It is the only place we experience life. We need to be mindful of what's happening in each moment. And number 7, rejoin the whole. We've seen Earth from the spaceships, and when we see that, we see all the natural forms, but we don't see boundaries or national borders. God created a whole cosmos in which everything is connected and interrelated and crosses boundaries, and nothing exists apart from the whole. There is no life or creativity or love or beauty apart from the whole. There is no redemption apart from the whole. We are not separate beings running around. We are manifestations of the whole. When I look around at what's happening today in our lives, and then, of course, what's happening in the world, it seems to me that we are living more by the Enuma Elish than we are our own creation story in Genesis 1. In the Enuma Elish, chaos is visualized as horrible, marauding gods. In Babylon, peace was kept through oppression. Same was true in Rome, and they called it Pax Romana. How many of you have heard of Pax Romana? The peace of Rome. The peace of Rome meant not peace, actually, but order and control through violence. Are we living in the midst of Pax Americana? Do we exert control in the world via violence and oppression? When our lives get messy, what do? We seek control at all costs. When we are feeling our lives are messy, do we tend to get testy with our children? Look at that mess, Bobby. The Legos are all over the floor. You know that when I step on a Lego, it hurts. Do you want to hurt me? Now get this room back in order. Or what I could do, sit down with Bobby in the middle of the Legos and create something. Mindfulness. I understand that the advice in the midst of your life feeling messy is that there should be some routine, some order to your life. I also know that it's important to sit in the middle of the chaos. Resist trying to solve things. Let go of the need to control what's happening in our minds. Switch over to the right brain and see if there is something creative happening. What will emerge will not be a perfect Nabu fighter. It will become something like Theodore created. Something where you're not quite sure where all the functions are, but they're there somewhere. When our boys played when they were growing up, they had many toys. Cars and trucks, of course, remember they're boys. Legos, although they did have Beanie Babies, but sometimes the Beanie Babies played sumo, but I won't get into that. Dinosaurs, Star Wars figures, McDonald's toys, and when they played with all these on the floor, they all got mixed up. You know? They all got mixed up, and pretty soon the dinosaurs were playing with the Star Wars figures, and our reasonable minds would say, hey, no, that's not how it works. The dinosaurs are not supposed to be attacking a Lego castle. They belong in different worlds. At this point, we have to remember, for children, toys are serious business. They work out how they see the world through play, and it would behoove us not to tell them that order is always good and chaos is bad. Because life is messy, and it helps for them to know this, and creativity is a little messy. I think we all need to know this. All this happening in an experience in our life right now feels bad. It isn't all bad. It isn't. Past 4 years have been very chaotic. But in that chaos has been epiphany. We've been living in a season of epiphany. Inertia may call us to recreate order from the past. No, we have before us an inimitable opportunity to bring creativity and transformation to our country because of what has been unearthed. And now we see more clearly. Think about how creative the Women's March, the Pride Parade, and Black Lives Matter have been. How creative they've been. They all emerged from the chaos that we're living in. Pax Romana doesn't like these kinds of events. Pax Americana would say, hey, the dinosaurs don't attack Lego castles. That's not how it's supposed to be ordered. Put those dinosaurs back in their ghetto box. We must try to imagine what new can come out of all of this. I urge you to think about it. And in the end, chaos isn't evil. Creativity needs chaos. Beauty needs contrast. And birth is messy. God created the world out of chaos. She moved over the water, over the bottomless emptiness, the formless void, and all the mess. And it was out of the chaos she said, let there be light. Amen.